Okay. Welcome everyone. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of ANC 34G. This is a special meeting we're calling tonight. We don't ordinarily meet in August, but unfortunately the last 2 Augusts we have met, so we've had to have a special meeting. So tonight we have only one item on the agenda, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. First, let's introduce the other commissioners. I represent the single-member district that's 34G03, and it's basically the area between Utah and Nebraska and Broad Branch. Becky, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Rebecca Madak, and I'm 34G04. I'm bumping to everybody on this side of the table. I have Utah to basically Tennyson, Broad Branch to Nebraska, and I have Lafayette School in my single-member district.
Hi everyone, my name is Abraham Clayman, and I represent Hawthorne and part of Barnaby Woods for ANC 34G01.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shanda Tuck-Garfield, and I'm the commissioner for ANC 34G02, which is on the part of the district that's closest to Rock Creek Park, and I'm bordered by Oregon Avenue, Military, and thank you for coming tonight.
Hello, I'm Jerry Mallett. I represent 3G05. That's from Chevy Chase Circle down Connecticut Avenue to about Military on this side of Connecticut Avenue where we're sitting right now.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Dan Bradfield, representing 3G06, which is the western portion of the district, Connecticut Avenue, Chevy Chase, over towards Chevy Chase Park, downtown.
Okay, we have a quorum, 6 commissioners here tonight. Chris Romboludi is out of town, and so he didn't make it to the meeting tonight. But we can take action as a full commission. The first item to discuss tonight is the agenda. As I said, there's only one item on the agenda, and that is the liquor license application by the new American City Diner. It's going to be at the same location as the old diner, and they have to file an application, which we'll be talking about later. Any objections or changes or modifications to the agenda? All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, I have a few announcements. I will try to keep these short since this meeting I hope is not going to take very long. The first is with regard to the Community Center Modernization Program, and as those of you who've been following our commission for some time will know, we have been working for 2 years, approximately 2 years, to get a modernized community center here rather than this building that we've got right now. And we were successful after a very intensive effort of getting community input through a survey and other steps. We were successful in getting $19 million appropriated in the budget beginning on October 1st, 2018. And that's spread over 3 fiscal years, but we're going to have that money then to modernize this building. That's a major undertaking, and we wanted to get started on it as quickly as possible, and so we have scheduled a meeting for September 17th at 7 o'clock here at the commission, at the community center. And we're going to use the recommendations and the report that we prepared back last January as a starting point for that discussion. We're going to focus on 2 issues. One is the configuration and the design of the new building, whether it's going to be in this particular footprint or an expanded footprint, exactly what we think it ought to be. And second, how do we deal with the transition for all of the programs that are active here at the community center during the construction period, which is probably going to be at least 1.5 years. And so those are the topics of our discussion for this meeting on the 17th. We hope to have representatives from the Department of Parks and Recreation and the Department of General Services who will be here as well. And we're hoping to really kick-start this process so that we don't waste any time and we get into the nitty-gritty meat of it right away. So everyone is welcome to come to that meeting. It's a public meeting, and we'll be here at the community center. The second item, by way of announcement, is the ANC election is coming up in November. And I believe all 7 of the commissioners have submitted their petitions to be on the ballot, so that absent some change between now and November, all 7 of us will be running again. And as far as, I checked this afternoon, and as far as I know, there's not going to be any opponent. No opponent at least has submitted petitions, so it's going to be the 7 of us again, it looks like. The next announcement is with regard to the 2nd District Awards Banquet. I just want to put this on people's calendar. It's September 26th from 6:30 to 10 at Maggiano's, Little Italy, over on Wisconsin Avenue. This is an annual event put on by the Community Advisory Council for the Metropolitan Police District in District 2. It's a very good event. It's an opportunity to thank all of the first responders and police officers who do such a good job of taking care of us. And there's one more. There's a couple of seats up here in front.
Okay.
The whole thing would have come crashing down.
Former commissioner, who's here tonight. But this is a very good event. The tickets are $50 for dinner, and it's an opportunity for us to say thanks to the police officers. You can get those tickets on Eventbrite, and I'll post a link in our minutes. Next is Chevy Chase DC Day, which is going to be September 15th this year. This is another annual event put on by the Chevy Chase Citizens Association. It will be from 1 to 4 o'clock along Connecticut Avenue and in the common area between the library and the community center. That's always a good event, particularly for kids, with lots of games and food. And I think this year they're going to have a chili cook-off as well. So put that on your calendars as well. Now, the last one I have is, I don't know whether Abe or Shanna, you want to talk about the Oregon Avenue watershed? One of you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Okay. I'll turn it over to you then to talk about Oregon Avenue Watershed Clean Rivers Project.
Sure. The Oregon Avenue Watershed Clean Rivers Project is a project that was presented to the community about a year ago to construct bioretention, I won't say facilities, but structures in the street to prevent runoff from consistently going into the sewer system and to diminish that a little bit. And there were a couple of meetings last spring that some people in this room may have attended to discuss where those sites would be, and a number of sites were chosen around the community at that time. About a year ago, we sort of stopped hearing about that project, and it seemed either to be on hold or awaiting some sort of approval that we were not aware of. And unfortunately, we received word pretty recently that it was scheduled to move forward, and the ANC reached out to members of the Department of Transportation and said that we would like them to come to a public meeting with the community to explain where these sites would be, the proposal, what they would entail in terms of construction, and to solicit some sort of feedback from the community before moving forward. Because we believe we're representing your interest when we do this, that if there's going to be some sort of project that is going to affect the neighborhood, the streets, and places where people park, that the community should have a chance to give input on that. So we are in the process of scheduling that meeting and hope to have it on the calendar soon.
And that'll probably be in September, hopefully the first half of September. Okay, any other announcements, Becky?
As long as we're doing full announcements. We also have the Lafayette Rec Center project. So we had a meeting over a year ago. We had one a couple weeks ago. There's also going to be another one in September. So the design team's on board. They came with a rough general idea of the concept of the rec center. And then the next meeting, they'll fine tune it a little more. And still available for community input. So I would urge everybody who uses the park to come to that meeting because it's going to be important. We're going to have to live with that rec center for the next, like the community center, 50 years or more. And I also wanted to announce that Councilmember Todd, we all know that there's a stormwater runoff issue in the upper field in Lafayette Park and around the other areas. He has found money. DOE came out and did an assessment. They put in a plan and with a budget of how much it would cost to do some berms and some mulching to catch the stormwater, and that's going to be implemented. It's probably not going to be implemented before the rec center project, but we're going to try to get it done as soon as possible. Councilmember Todd found the money for that. So finally, we won't have the waterfalls going on to 33rd Street in Casada, hopefully.
Okay, Abe, anything else? Shannon?
My main, you can hear me. I recently met with the residents of the Knollwood Retirement Community, and there are some members I see in the audience, and I just wanted to thank them, one, for allowing me to go to Knollwood to talk about issues in the community. We talked about updates from Oregon Avenue and other questions that they had, but I'd also like to thank them for signing my petition to put my name again on the ballot. I see two of the residents here today, but also in addition to the Knollwood residents, other residents that were out in the community who supported me to at least put my name on. But I just wanted to reach out to everyone to let everyone know that I'm always available. You can email me, call me, etc. about different issues. And thank you very much for being so supportive.
Okay, Jerry?
One quick thing, DDOT, Department of Transportation, recently completed their safety study of the intersection of Chevy Chase Parkway and Military Road, and they're going to be coming to our meeting on September 24th to present their findings, their recommendations, and community input before anything proceeds.
Nothing tonight.
All right, I don't think I see anybody here from the mayor's office or from Councilmember Todd or Councilmember Shay's office. Nope. Okay. Any other community announcements anyone wants to make? Okay, we'll go right into our discussion of the liquor license application at 5532 Connecticut. Just by way of background, on July 18th, the ANC received notice of the application for a new Class C liquor license. And Class C just means that it includes beer, wine, and spirits. The site, it's at the site of the recently closed American City Diner. The applicant was listed as New ACD LLC, and we understood from press reports that the owner was Steve Solis, who is with us tonight. The notice specified a protest petition deadline of August 27th. That was too late for us to get it on the agenda for our July 23rd meeting, and we didn't have a meeting scheduled in August. And so for that reason, we thought it was necessary to have this special meeting or to try to get a postponement of that petition deadline. We initially contacted the lawyer for the applicant, and we weren't able to reach an agreement initially about postponement, and so we scheduled this meeting. In the interim, though, after we did that, we had a further meeting, and we were able to reach an agreement about postponing the protest petition deadline. So now, rather than being on August 27th, it's going to be on October 1st. And so that will give us both of our meetings in September to hear further from the community, to talk further with the applicant, to see if there is some common ground where we can reach an agreement. Commissioner Bradfield and I also met with the applicant's representatives, and we discussed generally how we approach these kinds of matters. And one of the most important aspects of that is that we treat all of the restaurants along Connecticut Avenue the same. And nobody's going to get a better deal, nobody's going to get a worse deal. And so for that reason, we are, I got to turn my mic on. For that reason, we gave them copies of some of the agreements that we've had in the past, so that they would know the kinds of things we were interested in, particularly with regard to the hours of operation, with regard to trash removal, and with regard to noise. Those were the key issues that we had addressed previously with other restaurant applications, and so we told them that those would be the same kinds of things that we would want to address with them. So as a result of the deferment of the protest petition date, we don't have to have a vote tonight. So the objective for this meeting is really to just get acquainted with this new restaurant that's coming in on Connecticut Avenue, to hear what their proposals are, where they're headed, the kinds of things that they're interested in doing at that site, and then to answer any questions. And all of this will be on a very preliminary basis, because at this point, I don't think the design hasn't been fixed in stone, and certainly the ANC hasn't yet taken a firm position on exactly what we want either. So all of this is to explore the issue further, to get further information, and to prepare for what we hope will be a very productive meeting in September, when we can discuss these issues and decide whether or not a protest is necessary. Dan, you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay. Yes.
Are we talking about the old diner or the Connecticut and McKinley Bank Old Bar? Which?
No, this is the diner. This
Thank
is
you,
the old
Debbie.
diner.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
It's 5532.
Okay, thank
The
you.
5601, which is the Little Beast Bistro,
Yeah.
that's going up, supposed to open, I think, after Labor Day, they say now.
Okay.
So, okay, so I will turn it over to Steve, and you can introduce your team as well.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. I want to first thank you, Commission here at Chevy Chase. Mr. Speck, thanks for laying all that out. And Dan, very nice to meet you. Nice to meet all of you. Happy to be here today, and obviously to all of you, I really want to thank you for coming in today. I know we're all busy. We're in the midst of the summer season, and so I really appreciate your time, and hopefully this will be a fruitful opportunity for us to engage. And so I want to start out. I think what would be great is to talk a little bit about sort of how we got to here, because I think it's important for you all to know. We initially engaged with the landlord and commenced a relationship with the landlord back in May-ish of this year. And at the time, in full transparency, the existing operations that were at the time American City Diner was planning to continue to operate the location up until early into next year. We didn't have a definitive date in mind, but they were going to continue to run it. We, like many of you, caught wind that they were shutting down kind of on a whim. And so when most of you probably heard about the fact that they were shutting down, we also heard the same thing at the same time. As a result of that, there was something that was put into the lease by where if this were to happen, we needed to accelerate our efforts and start to push our agenda forward so that we could hopefully get open and start paying rent to the landlord. And so I just want to be very clear and in full transparency that we also are trying to navigate a bit in a more accelerated period. And after having conversations, I know my reps have had that, Stephen Thornton, who's sitting right here, and Whitley Preem-Sitten. We collectively, after speaking to you, recognized that it was in the best interest to have the meeting, but really keep it more of an open dialogue. We want to share some of our ideas, some of our plans. I want to be blatantly clear. We are talking more than 50,000 foot view right now. Again, we just dove into this pretty aggressively as of the last few weeks, and so we look forward to sharing that here in a moment. But like I said, I think it's important for you guys just to know, sort of from our end, timeline-wise, we also have kind of jumped into this thing and started legging in. So we felt, extending the application was the right thing to do. And like I said, I'm happy to be here and look forward to speaking a bit more about what we're planning to do. The other thing I also want to speak about is I've been made aware of a lot of the concerns the community has. We've also been privy to some of the voluntary agreements that the other restaurants have signed. And we look forward to working in concert with you guys and working with the community to do everything in our power to meet the guidelines and the standards that the community is looking for. A little bit about us. I'm an entrepreneur here. I started here 6.5 years ago. I co-founded a business called Ann Pizza. Currently I have about 32 units of that. Started on 8th Street Northeast, and then from there have gone on to buy and start other things. We also own Ted's Bulletin, which is a 5-unit American sort of specialty casual dining establishment. We have Federalist Pig, which is a convergence of American barbecue. And we also purchased Kramer Books. We look forward to renovating and restoring Kramer Books, as it's one of the I think one of the most iconic retail assets here in Washington, D.C. So I want to just maybe start out by just showing some renders, some of the ideas, and maybe you can step up here. Why don't we do inspiration first, and then we'll go into the physical site.
Randy? Steve wants to walk around. Okay.
Yeah.
So what Whitley is, Vanna Whiting is everyone at the moment, is a mood board that we had put together. This mood board is really, I think, a compilation of directionally what we're thinking for this site, which is going more in the French direction, more of a brasserie, cafe style experience. It'll be open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We are, in our portfolio today, I own 38 restaurant properties. Predominantly they're food driven, some of which have different varying degrees of alcoholic mixes, but I can tell you none of which have more than like 30%. So we are vastly and predominantly a food driven company or a restaurant driven company. We feel really excited about this because, in looking at the competition, not just in the community, but in the broader sort of aspects of the area, we think it plays well into allowing us to take this diner, which also is very iconic in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms, looking to restore the actual diner car by reskinning it, cleaning it up, and then looking at adding some sort of structure in the back, maintaining a single-story sort of use, and building a multifaceted space, like I said, that we feel can support the community and the different need sets of the community. We do and would like to obviously clean up. When I say clean up the facade, it also means, right now there's some things going on in the front that I probably don't think are compliant and that we would plan to remove, and really want to bring the thing up to a tremendous standard that I think would be very much an amenity to the community. So here you'll just use, like I said, some inspiration shots. Just aesthetically, it will be a finer design. We're not looking to be fine dining. We don't want to be fine dining. We want to be very approachable. I think the best way to define it would be, approachable but sophisticated. That will come in part by way we create the physical design of the space as well as the price points. So we can cater to the large swath that the community currently has, and really be a community sense of place that my hope is that many will utilize us in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms, whether it be for breakfast on one day, dinner another day, or just to come in and grab a cup of coffee, perhaps a scone on the way to going somewhere else in the morning. So this is, like I said, just giving you a little bit of a flavor as to what we're thinking. I think it'll be pretty sweet to take the diner car, like I say, reskin that, really beautify it, make it nice, modernize it, and then look to go more in the direction of this type of a concept. Now, on the second mood board we have, which I will be candid in just stating that it really is a very sort of, I would say, a very sort of simple architectural plan. These are 3D renders we do in a SketchUp. They're not overly elaborate, but they just start to give you some idea as we're thinking about the space and space planning. So, we would look to, in a perfect world, like I said, add a structure in the back. Right now, I would venture to say that there's a lot of aspects of the diner that are clearly not compliant and not to modern standards. We would look to modernize the standards of that entire space. We would look to potentially have a nice outdoor flex space where a nice glass solarium would actually sit on the side along the sidewalk, and then with a nice little small outdoor space that we could use for the better months of the year. So, going back to a comment I made earlier, we are very much in the know with regards to a lot of the concerns the community has. I can tell you that we have a lot of different operations in many different communities, and there's a lot of different ways that we can skin the cat, if you will, and how we look at garbage, how we look at dealing with those types of things. I know that there's been a task force that you guys have put together as it pertains to parking. There are a lot of different ways I think we can provide some value there, considering we are in a lot of different trade areas that have similar concerns. Noise is another one I know is a cause for concern. I think noise, obviously, by way of patrons, by way of noise, by way of vehicular traffic, also by way of mechanicals, right? Making sure mechanical is not too loud and waking people up in the middle of the night. So we do have a lot of different experiences. I think those will lend very well to this opportunity because of our track record. You know, we don't want to venture to say every community is the same. It's not. I don't want to suggest that Chevy Chase is the same as Barracks Row or other areas. But what I am saying is, based on our experience, which is far-reaching, we do have a lot of different ways that we feel like we can combat some of these challenges. And like I said, put our best foot forward to be a great community ambassador and a great representation of the community at large. So, happy to open it up for questions. Like I just said, this is a 50,000-foot view. And so we'll do our best to address what we can, but I do need to leave the room right now because I wanted to use this as a forum to just sort of reaffirm the fact that we have extended our application, but also to have some good spirited conversation around anything that you would like to bring to the table. So,
Okay, we'll start with questions with commissioners, and then we'll go to questions from the audience. Any of the commissioners have questions?
Sure. Mr. Sleaze, thank you very much for presenting and for providing pictures of what you are inspired by and what you potentially hope to do. One question that I have is, what, if any, idea do you have about potentially using public space or additional public space for what is currently being used by the restaurant?
I'm sorry, just talking about what the public space is.
Do you intend to expand the footprint of the restaurant to public space any more than it currently is?
We don't, I think I got your noise. We don't, we're still sorting that out, and to be very, like I said, transparent. We're about transparency, okay? So we're still sorting it out. You know, clearly right now, there's a bump out south of the main entry that is made of wood and tarp, and some things that clearly we would probably do without going forward. I suspect that's on public space. We just had a site plan that was done, and a survey that was done, so we're investigating that. You know, we're gonna do our best to create the best environment we can. Be mindful of, like I said, the balance of managing the expectations of the community, and to make sure that we try to have a nice business and be, like I said, a good place for people to do the things I mentioned earlier. So I can't give you any definitive answer yet, but you know, we're looking at a lot of different things right now.
Thank you so much to you for coming this evening, and it's so nice to meet you, and
Nice to meet you.
welcome to the neighborhood. And I'm excited about having a new option for all of our residents in the community. And I know you just mentioned that things are still in the works, but you're looking at a French brasserie type restaurant. So are you looking at something that would be amenable and open to all residents, like children, families, and some of our senior residents? Because we do have a large population. It's fairly diverse in terms of the age range. So
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on
absolutely.
that?
Well, I do look forward to being here. And if I wasn't clear, you know, when I said that we want to be a community place, I want to reiterate we want to be a community place. So I think to take that a step further, that means a place that pushes inclusivity, that is a place where any and all are welcome. You know, we do want to offer, like I say, a sophisticated product, but a very approachable product, both in price and both in style. And so that means that any and all are welcome.
I'll just repeat, thanks for being here and for presenting this. One question I have, you did mention that you understand that we have a neighborhood parking task force that just started up. There's currently an 8 or 9 car parking lot attached to the diner. You mentioned building out back. Is that where you're planning on building out to?
It might be 8 or 9 on a good day. I'm not entirely sure the parking lot is satisfactory for 3 cars, but nevertheless, we do plan to expand the use of the space. You know, we have to balance the fragility of managing the cost associated with operating a space on that corner. We are, like I said a moment ago, we are aware that there are some concerns about parking, about congestion, about noise around parking. I think we want to look at very carefully, sort of what we're looking to, how are people getting to our place? I think we want to do a deeper dive into that, right? I mean, obviously the world has changed a bit with respect to transportation. There are many people traveling in a lot of different mediums now. I'm sure you know what they are. So we're just trying to assess all these things, but I did want to make it clear to you that we're aware of the fact that this has been set up. We're aware of the fact that clearly parking and noise and congestion are causes for concern, and we'll do everything in our power to address those as we go forward. Our hope is that we don't have those issues, because we'd like to be a place where many can get to by walking to us, right? So, or getting to us by city transportation, other means of transportation that exist today in an array of forms, and which means not having a lot of parking. If we do expand the space, clearly, if I say we're going to go single story, that only means that we will only go backwards. And so yes, there probably would be some, we would be obstructing some of that parking spaces to do that, but I think it might be in the best interest for all if we can figure it out.
Thank you for being here.
Welcome.
And we appreciate conversations that we've had thus far, learning the direction that you're headed. I won't repeat what Jerry said, but I'm sure you will hear it multiple times this evening. It's probably, you have a great reputation for, you're in areas that have to deal with noise reduction, that have to deal with trash, that have to deal with road pavement. All of those seem to be things that you clearly deal with on a daily basis, if not hourly. Chevy Chase is a little bit unique because it's a little bit more unique compared to some of your other areas because of its resident, slightly quieter. We're not Adams Morgan. We're not, so there are some more concerns. I think the concerns are a little higher on the parking side. There are no magic. I think we all know there's just no magic opportunity here to snap our fingers and fix all of the parking issues. I think there's some creative ideas. I know there are things that we've been looking at from a parking task force perspective into the future. And I know some other things that restaurants have used, including valet service, utilization of lots, other places that are not being used, that type of thing, to lessen the load on the local streets. Very important, just really, really important. Yep. I know you're literally at the 50,000 foot level, and over the next 8 weeks you're just going to be going nosediving. But keep in touch with us. I would hope that there's some way that we create some way that the community can communicate directly with you guys as well, because I think that's very healthy. It's something that we've done with other restaurants, and I think it helps solve problems much quicker than creating bigger problems. So,
Thank you for that. And we saw the opportunity to extend this application as a way to shepherd a collaborative dialogue as we go deeper. And I don't want to sit here and pose, like I said a moment ago, that we know everything and anything about your community. You know much more about it than we do. I'm not going to act like we know more, or no, that's not what we're here to do. What we're here to do is, like I said, talk about it, have a good spirited conversation today about it, and I think as we go forward, use this opportunity as a springboard to have more productive conversations. And we want to do the best we can because we think it's in the best interest of all to do that. And hopefully, if we can play a little bit of a role in making things better, it just only helps. We understand we're not going to solve parking issues, and there's greater issues obviously at hand. We're not going to be the holy grail that's going to eliminate rodents or anything of the like. But if we can do our part in making those things better, then we feel like we're contributing the best way we can for the community.
Okay, let me just talk before we get to the other questions. I've got a couple of things. First, given the accelerated schedule, and I appreciate your explanation for why you're on this accelerated schedule, and I understand that, but it will be very important and helpful for the commission if we can get more information in September. It's below the 50,000 foot level. I mean, specific things that I think, picking up on Abe's issue about the public space, if you can give us a better feel for exactly what size the facility is going to be, how large is this restaurant going to be? I know you asked for in your application 165 or something like that occupancy. Let us know if that's going to be the case, or if it's going to be something less than that or more than that. We really need to know those kinds of figures. The other thing that Abe mentioned too was how much public space is going to be taken. I mean, obviously we're going to have to go for a public space permit application. That's a separate process, and it comes to the commission, to our commission in a different way as well. So it would be helpful if we know a little bit more about that. For instance, I couldn't even find a clear specification of where the building restriction line was, what constitutes public space there. So if you could let us know that more in September. The more we can start addressing these issues in September, the better. And that's going to require more information. So the more information you can give us, the better. And as I said at the very beginning, the key things that we're going to want to be talking about are hours and noise and traffic.
Sure.
As well as parking. But, and if you can come back to us, I know your application had some aggressive requests in terms of hours. But if you can come back to us with what you think is realistic, especially based on the agreements that we've reached with other restaurants, that would be very helpful. Will move us along more quickly.
Sure.
So we can do that.
Yeah, and we will come back with a very detail-oriented plan going forward in September. We will address these things with a lot of color and a lot of coordination, and you know, we'll feel like a pretty good plan. And frankly, over the next 4-ish weeks or 5 weeks, or when we see each other again, you know, we'll have more insight that I think will help us make informed decisions about how we want to proceed forward. And we looked at the voluntary agreements, and you know, we're aware of them, we've seen them, and we know what the precedents are. And, you know, we'll look at that and weigh that against, you know, what we're looking to do, and we'll do everything in our power to try to find a ground that makes sense.
Just in terms of scheduling this too, we've got a meeting on the 10th, and then again on the 24th, I think, September. And if you think you've got enough to come to us on the 10th, we can include it in that agenda. But if you're not ready, just tell us and we'll put it off until the 24th. We've got time to do that, and I think it would be better to have more information going into the process than to put it off longer. But we do want to have a little bit of time after that meeting on the 24th, we'll discuss it at that point, we'll vote at that point, to memorialize whatever it is we need to file with the EDC board.
Duly noted. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's go to, yes ma'am, in the back. Can you identify yourself and...
Yes.
and
My name is Betsy. I'm in Arsenal. I probably live in the house closest to the restaurant on this side of the street. So I hope you're going to listen.
I'm sorry, could you stand up and speak, please, because I can't hear.
Or-
Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
You could come up to the microphone.
I said I live probably the closest house to the restaurant on this side of Connecticut Avenue, so I'm hoping he's going to give me a nice coupon code. The way you're talking, you're going to convert the diner by adding and subtracting to it. I thought you would probably knock the whole thing down. That wasn't considered.
First, nice to meet you, Betsy. We can talk about those coupons. We've considered a lot of things. You know, I'm under the belief that that diner car is unique. I think that there's some history there. Some may have not great history, others may have great history, but nevertheless, it's unique. And what we wanted to do was first look at how we can perhaps utilize an interesting structure that poses some uniqueness to it, and how we could combine that with perhaps some new construction elements. And so, you know, right now we're looking at, like I said, preserving the car. We would clean it up. It needs a lot of cleaning, both exterior and interior. We probably would blow out the back, and we would add a new structure, and that would be new construction. And we would create hopefully one nice harmonious space.
Just so you know, there was a gas station here where the diner was being.
We made sure that the remediation was removed before we did the deal, because it was a deal, I think it was Amoco, right?
It's Amoco.
Amoco oil, right? Yeah. We looked into it.
Dan?
To that regard, is doing a second story out of the question? Realize, and I get, you're at 50,000 feet, and this is really very broad conceptually still.
Yeah, I think when you, yeah, absolutely. I mean, no, it's not out of the question. I think when you add a second story, it requires a lot more structural reinforcement, stairwells, elevators, capacity, things that we need to be mindful of. Probably would need to warrant more outdoor space. I want to be cognizant of that and what that could do to potentially creating some conflicts. So for that very reason, we're erring on the side of a single story right now, but that could change.
Dave? Yeah, Dave Engel. I have two questions related. First is, Eddie's the scenario. Would you stand up, David?
David, so we can all hear you here.
Under any scenario, you're going to increase the footprint, be it public space or on your as-of-right property. It seems to me that prior to getting approval by the ANC for the liquor license, we have some general agreement on what that footprint would be. Otherwise, we're asking for a liquor license which would double the capacity. That should affect when the ANC approves the liquor license. Second issue is looking at those renderings. It looks like you want to harden the public space, the structure, harden the structure. What I mean is make it more. Once you harden a structure that's on public space, it becomes almost impossible to remove it. So therefore, it gets particularly important that the ANC be involved in that, because you may decide 5 years from now you don't want to run it as a bistro and you want to sell the lease to somebody else. That structure's there. And then next thing you know, it's being used for a grocery store, for example. So I think some discussion on how that hardened structure will be built and how it can easily be removed should be included.
Thanks for those questions, Dave. I'll address the second one. We'll do whatever, we will abide by all the laws, regulations of DC, DDOT when it comes to sidewalk cafes, permits, structures. Know a few things about them. Obviously, anything we do structurally needs to be removed within 24 hours. And anything that we need to do, we will abide by DC law and code, and that's what we'll do. So when we come back to you guys in September, you'll see some plans. And you'll see what kind of space will be, the size of the space, what is encroaching on public space versus not, and what we'd like to recommend, why we'd like to recommend it versus, a private outdoor space, this, that, and the fifth. And so we'll be prepared to address those in September.
Yes.
Janet Shank. This is
Hi, Janet.
exciting. I like the French direction. It's very exciting. But I do have some real concerns. I just want to make 2 points. One on trash. You have an opportunity to set a new standard for the neighborhood restaurant industry. None of the restaurants, at least on the western side of Connecticut, have adequate trash containers. It's a huge problem. I have seen trash containers down by the wharf that are immeasurably better in terms of rodent control, etc. I would implore you to look at not the types of trash containers that the existing restaurants have, but at newer, more modern issues. Second, on parking. I would ask that both you and the ANC clarify for us at a future meeting the issue of the bank parking lot. Our house abuts on that. And frankly, I don't want people, whether they've been drinking or not, arriving at 2 in the morning. It's already a problem. It's not huge yet, but it's a problem because the noise level. So if that parking lot and others perhaps that also are next to houses is seen as the panacea, that's a problem. And I don't know where valet parking goes other than the parking places we use as residents. So it's not going to be easy, but I would just hope that the ANC considers that in conjunction with the status of some struggles we've had around other parking areas. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Janet. So I think on the parking front, to address that first, it sounds like a multifaceted sort of situation when you're dealing with someone else's private property, and how that does or doesn't work. I suspect we can have those conversations and do our best to try to mitigate that. With respect to garbage, I mean, you and I are very much aligned as it pertains to trash. Matter of fact, our companies have, by and large, set standards in every trade area we've gone into as to how we handle trash, and they come in many shapes and forms. I mean, right now we don't use anything but compactors, frankly. As a matter of fact, in one of our locations, we actually applied for a grant that allowed us to use compactors. We have different types of compactors. We have compactors for trash, and we have compactors that handle cardboard and other recyclables. We have different types of spaces for those things and how we handle those things. And we have trash plans for how we handle the frequency of those things and the time by which those things are handled, not at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., but 8 a.m., or how we handle other things of the like. And so, duly noted, I heard you. We look forward to doing our best setting a standard in this trade area. And, like I said, we've done this before already, so we look forward to it. And I mentioned earlier, we've had so many different experiences. I think it's a good thing, I believe. And, so like I said, we're going to look at the situation for what it is, and we'll do our very best to address these things. Because, frankly, we're aligned on that. Like, we don't want to have a smelly, rodent-infested space that's, frankly, attached in some capacity to our property. It's not a good look. And so we're beyond aligned on that. I think it's just finding the right way to address it, addressing it very aggressively and rigorously as we make sure we do the right thing.
I'm going to real quick. I can certainly tell you, at least from several commissioners' perspectives, PNC by no stretch of the imagination is the panacea in any form, any shape or form. It is extremely unique, as you know. The zoning and the code that goes along with PNC is extremely unique. So even if some people thought it were the answer, I don't think it could ever even be the answer. But it's something that we are going to have to address at some particular point anyway, just because of the...
But it's currently being used as a public parking lot at night. And so I'm asking the ANC to clarify that status.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Let me just make one other comment. There is one very underutilized parking lot, and this is being discussed by the parking task force, and that is the Wells Fargo lot. And after hours, that's not being used at all. So that might be possible. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, your name?
Okay, could you use the microphone?
Good name?
Sure. So one additional issue with the garbage. One of the problems we have, particularly as there's an increase in restaurants, is every restaurant has their own contract with a garbage collector. And so if you live in our house, is going to stare directly at the extension of your additional structure. We're going to look right at it at 3 o'clock in the morning when people come out after drinking there. So we're very sensitive to sort of what goes on right in the vicinity of the commercial part of the neighborhood. Every restaurant has a different contract. They all come at a different time. So if you live there in the morning, you will have one garbage truck coming at 8:45, at 9:15 there's another one, at 10 o'clock there's another one, at 10:30 there's another one. There's no coordination among any of the restaurants. So if there's any way that you can coordinate and get the same garbage collector, so when one truck comes, it does at the same time, one restaurant and the other, and then it leaves, that would be wonderful. The second thing is, I want to pick up on your reference to stone in the morning. We live on Livingston Street. You're going to create another mess that we have on Livingston Street every morning between about 7:30 in the morning till about 9 o'clock in the morning, when it's double park, triple park, people honking, people can't get through. It's a mess. And that's what's going to happen on Morrison. And I think if we're going to do this, we should think about enforcing the regulations about not parking on the corner, not parking in spaces where it says clearly no standing, no parking. We're going to need a different set of rules, or you're going to have an additional mess in Morrison, just like we have it on Livingston right now. So, to be honest with you, when we look at this and we see, 3 o'clock in the morning in a residential neighborhood with a restaurant that previously we only had restaurants facing Connecticut. We never had restaurants facing actually the residential part of the neighborhood. Now with the pizza place for the first time, the outside area is bleeding onto McKinley. Yours is going to be directly onto Morrison, facing residential areas, facing houses. That's a concern if you're going to be open till 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just not acceptable. So
We're not going to have it open until 3 a.m. Yeah, it's not going to be open until 3 a.m. We can just take that off the table right now. There's no other place on the island that's open until 3 a.m. This is not going to be the first. Okay, Steve, do you want to say something in response to that?
No.
Okay. Al?
I'm Alan Beach, a former commissioner. As some of you know, the former owner somewhat snickered this ANC in regard to the use of public space and the way he obtained it and what he did with it. And the sign he built up next to this door on the right-hand side as you look at the building, which his sign was still there, which sometimes was used for political and other purposes until we brought it to his attention when he was allowed to have art. Whatever you want to do, I hope its art stays there. But in regard to the public space that's currently in public space, that front part, which looks like a tent set up there, I hope the commission will look very carefully at that as to whether an alcohol permit should be allowed with that until the use of that public space has been fairly agreed to by all parties.
Thank you, Alan.
Alan, I think that goes to what we talked about a couple of times, particularly David's talked to as a former commissioner. Obviously, he knows it, he gets it, he feels it, has felt it. We get it, we understand it. I can tell you, Randy and I and several other commissioners have talked about it, and that's part of the reason why it's hopefully by September 10th, it would be very nice, realizing how much work has to be done in a 5-week period. That's a lot, and we understand that. But the more that we can do to kind of pin down and get to a place where we think we want to be, where you want to be, and we know measurements, we know inches, we know feet, we know how we're going to deal with the back, all the other things, then the questions really for the public space become pretty simple. Because we like all solutions finished before we get, quite honestly, 99% of the way there before we ever get to the public space. It all should happen at the front, and it should be all organized and agreed to at the very front so that there aren't problems going further.
Okay, yes.
Deborah Ashford, I'm a 27-year resident of 3700 Block, Morrison. And with the longevity genes in my family, I'm planning on being there another 27. What I wanted to say is that you look around this room and you see we are going to be here. We are unique, I think, as compared to some of your other establishments in that people come to this neighborhood and stay in this neighborhood. So who you're looking at, the people you're going to be looking at and complaining, and handling complaints from for so long as you are here because we're going to be here. And starting with, I wanted to say the ANC, if we're not going to get detailed information until the 24th, I hope there will be adequate time for those of us who are in the room to weigh in on those plans, because if we're looking at, it's not going to be the 10th, but it's going to be the 24th, but the vote is going to be on October 1st by the alcohol board, then that doesn't seem like very much time to me.
I agree with that, and I'm hoping we can get at least most of the information by the 10th. But ideally, we would have a presentation on the 10th, and we would identify any missing pieces of the information that we need. And then we'd be able to vote after we've considered all of this, we've considered any modifications that they make on the 24th. Now, the October 1st, that deadline is to submit a protest and to the ADC board. And if we don't submit a protest, then it would go in the way it is, and we're certainly not going to let that happen. The other alternative would be to reach an agreement with them before that time. So those are the two alternatives. Either we protest or we reach an agreement. And so that's the deadline that we would meet by October 1st. Okay, any other questions? Susan?
I'm sorry,
We can't hear you. Please do not.
I'm Susan Lemkin, I live on Connecticut Avenue. Just like that, I'm sure you've done usability studies, and I'm sure you've studied the other restaurants on the avenue. This community is, most of the restaurants on the avenue really are supported by the community. It's not Bethesda, it's not Adamsburg, and people aren't driving this neighborhood to go to restaurants. And I don't know whether you hope to change that profile. It would be really nice to have a first-class restaurant here. But I'm wondering where you see your competition for the restaurants that are already here.
Sure. Well, Deborah, I hope we're serving you for much longer than 27 years to make that comment. Susan, nice to meet you. Look, I mean, everything is competition because at the end of the day, the way we view it is, you know, it's all about how many times you're going to go out and spend your money dining in establishments, partaking in those experiences, and so we look at everything as competition. I think for us, as we've done an initial sort of, I guess, canvas of the community, we feel like there is an opportunity to, again, bring something that's highly approachable but slightly more sophisticated. We think that this is a great corner to do that in. But you know, we're still trying to sort all these things out, right? So what does that really mean? Well, what that means is, you know, we're gonna, I think as per what we discussed in our track record and operating really great properties and doing all these things hopefully pretty good, that we can be a great community ambassador for those in the community. I don't know if we'll attract people from outside the community or not. I really have no idea. It's not something that we're striving to do. Again, we're trying to build a place, a sense of place, one that really moves the people in the community. They want to participate, spend time there. They want to hang out there. They want to dine there. They want to hang out there, like I said. And so, you know, that's our intention. If it drives people from outside the community, I don't know. But it's not our goal. Our goal is to build a great product for the community first, and we'll see what else happens from there.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, Andrew Arbach.
Hi, Andrew.
Morrison Street resident. I think generally speaking, despite sort of a little bit of the tone, I think people are really excited for this to come to the neighborhood. We have some great restaurants here, and I think there's certainly room in the market for. So, I mean, that's certainly been some of the offline chatter that I've been engaged with. I think, you know, some of the issues around the edges, I think, could probably be worked out. The two things I wanted to mention, one was already brought up, but the mural and the marquee, I think people have liked those features, and I don't know what your thoughts were about continuing them or including them, but I think that that's been part of something that the neighborhood is appreciating.
Sure. Well, first, I wanted to say thank you, Andrew, and we are also very excited to have the opportunity to be here. So I'm happy that there's some excitement out there too as well. Look, we want to preserve as much as we can preserve. I think as evidenced, as I said earlier about the diner car, it clearly expands beyond the diner car. We'd like to keep the pylon sign. We'd like to be able to reskin it. We think that the mural can be very fascinating. We're a very creative company. We want to do creative things. We're apolitical, so there's not going to be any political things going on. Huh? Well, excuse me?
Not with a name like Scalise.
Scalise. It's actually Salus. I should actually, so I didn't want to. So I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you. You know, no, look, we want to, again, anything we can preserve that is part of this community, it's been interwoven into the fabric of this community for a long period of time, we'd like to preserve. You know, of course, we just got to kind of flush all those details out, like you said, and we're going to do our best to do that.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Stuart Ishimaru, on the 3700 block of Morrison. Question, two questions. You own a number of restaurants around town that serve alcohol. I would assume that in your applications for those other restaurants with the alcohol board, that you've asked for the maximum operating hours. do you always stay open until the close time of 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.? Or is the practice that you get permission to do that and then actually close earlier? That's my first question. Second question is, does the plans right now, or the thinking, does it anticipate making the food on site, or do you bring it in, or does that matter as you run a restaurant?
Good questions. We make it on site. We're a scratch kitchen, we're made to order, and we do that. Most all of our other properties will do that here. We do plan to have an open kitchen, which was referenced here in the initial schematic. We like to be transparent, and we think there's something to be said for the preparation and the theatrics that come with preparing and creating food. And our hope is that we'll do that here as well. As it pertains to your first question, there's no certain way we go about doing our business. Every trade area, requires different need sets and different things. We always want to try to get the maximum we always can, because, I think in this world today, especially in the food and beverage space, it's very competitive, and we want to make sure we maintain flexibility. But there's no let's get the most we can and shut down earlier this time the 5th. I don't think it's that prescriptive. We just kind of do what we need to do.
But can I jump in here? I'm sorry. All the restaurants on the avenue have the same hours, and it's the maximum hours. The memorandum of understanding, they don't stay open that long. Plus, there's really no business in our neighborhood.
Right, no, but what I'm trying to find out, at other businesses, do they in fact close down earlier and not at the maximum?
Some close at max, some close below max, some close much earlier. It just kind of depends. I was saying, it depends on the trade area, it depends on the brand. We have different brands, and they have different offerings with different needs, different consumer demands, and so we just, we look at all those factors when we, go in and open a business, and we'll do the same here.
Okay, what's up? Susan's got one more.
What's the time frame you're talking about? Because they built the restaurant up here, the Avalon Theater, and I think it took 2.5 years before.
Yeah.
Watermelon, they took forever.
That's the avenue.
Yeah.
Well, tentatively speaking, I think, we'd want to be open in Q3, late Q3 of next year. But a lot of factors will drive that. A little later, a little bit more than a year. I'd say a year and change from now.
All right.
Never want to commit though. There's things that, we always say the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns. There's always things that will happen. But tentatively, I'd be upset if it took us 2.5 years, to be frank. It would make me more upset. So.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Let me just emphasize, I know your team is here too, and the earlier you can get us information, definitive information, the better. We'd like to put this on the agenda for our September 10th meeting, if that's possible. And if not, then we want the information as early as we can get it, so we can get that out to the community as well. So let's just work together in making sure that happens. Okay? All right. That's the end of the business that we have. We've got a few commission business things we need to address. So if people want to leave, if you do so quietly, that would be fine.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Alan.
The question was raised about the ANC parking lot. I think their exception is now expired.
It has. It has. Thank you,
The
Steve.
exception to PNC has expired. Their special exception has expired.
Okay. People can talk. Excuse me. We're going to talk. Can you please go outside? It's exactly right. It is Rush Hashanah. Sure. Well, I don't think those are.
Very nice seeing all of you. I represent the applicant under ABC Council. Thank you so much. What is your name? Everyone's commute back is dry.
Thank you for coming.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for letting us.
Hi there.
Okay, now that everybody's gone.
Whoops. We are.
What's your law firm?
Pascal and Weiss and Keto. Pascal Weiss and Keto. You might be familiar
I was on the
with-
ABC.
Reset.
Do you know Paul Pascal?
You're stuck.
Yes.
Oh,
Hi.
He passed away.
I know. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, maybe we need to leave the mics on for the camera. We just got a few business things to take care of. The first is our July 23rd minutes. Those have been posted on the Chevy Chase listserv. Any changes, modifications? All those in favor of adopting them? 6-0. Do you have any checks?
We had one, Verizon, I can't remember the amount of money, we just.
Yes, we signed that. I don't
One for
read it.
Verizon. It was about the same as usual, about $125.
Okay, let's give the exact, give me the exact number.
Okay.
And, okay, all those in favor of approving the check for Verizon? 6-0. Okay, we've got a long list of things on the 10th. And we're going to have to pare that down some, I think. But I'm hopeful that we can get this diner application in, at least begin discussing that in more concrete terms. And I think we're going to be able to reach an agreement with them, but we need the specifics. It seemed to me that we were discussing a negotiated agreement. Dockless bikes, I don't know whether that's necessary to address on the 10th, but DDOT has said that they're going to make a decision pretty quickly on that. And so I'm afraid if we don't get comments in, we're going to miss our opportunity.
Is anybody for them?
I don't know.
I'm sure there are some people who...
There are a lot of people throughout the city that
Yeah.
are for them with certain regulations.
Right.
Put into place.
It's a matter really, I think, what the regulations would be.
Right, and August 31st is the end of the test period, so I don't know how soon after that they're coming out.
I tried to get that actually from DDOT, and San Zimbabwe did not have, he said they're going to decide quickly after the end of the test period. He didn't have a date. But we can put that off until the 24th, I think, certainly if there are other things that are pressing.
Maybe we could spend an hour
Yes.
I know.
on this. It's likely that we would spend a similar amount of time.
I thought it was been more
That's very
than
good.
design.
Very
If not
possible.
more.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Given that there'd be more detail.
Well, I think we can put off the Clean Energy Omnibus Amendments Act. That's, the council's not going to act on that quickly. It was introduced only in July, and so it's going to be a while before that's going to come up. And so I think we can put that discussion up. The presentation by DC Water on the contamination incident on July 13th.
Did
They will come to a meeting. They said some meeting in September. I haven't pinned them down on it. That could
Okay,
be,
we can move it to the.
move that to the 24th.
But I would like for them to come.
Yeah,
Because
I
the way
agree.
they handled it, I think it's important for our residents to have an idea of what they
Okay.
should do in the future.
The council is holding a hearing, the committee of the whole, on September 17th to address this legislation that they put in to overturn Initiative 77. I went ahead and got my name on the list to testify, just on the chance that we might want to do something. If we want to do something, though, it's going to have to be done on the 10th, because the testimony will be on the 17th, so we have to get it approved at a meeting on the 10th. Let me know if you want to do something on that, and where we think we ought to come out, because I don't think we reached a definitive conclusion by any means at our last meeting. Very good meeting, but I don't think we reached a conclusion.
I don't think we reached any conclusion.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't want to, well, give me some feedback on
Okay.
that. Let me know whether you want to do something on it, if so, what. Then the last one was a very short issue on the Lafayette Fall Festival, which we do have to do on the
I think the sooner the better, because I gotta get.
yeah, we need to do that. Okay. All right, well, I'll,
When you were pushing things off to the 24th, we do have a lot on the 24th
I know,
as well.
I realize that, I realize that, and we're probably gonna have to deal with diner again on the 24th. So,
Well, the only other,
let me juggle things around and see what I can come up with. I'll try to get a draft agenda out soon. I'm gonna be gone the last week in August, and so I'd like to do that before I
and
leave.
keep in mind, I was gonna say we could have a special meeting at the diner, but we're gonna have this Czech Community Center meeting, we're gonna have the rec center meeting, we're gonna have.
We're at Oregon Avenue,
Yeah, there's a lot of
watershed,
things.
We have a parking task force.
parking task force. I mean, all of those things are,
Busy month.
yeah, it's gonna be a very busy month.
Maybe
Okay.
when you do the 10th agenda, you should do the 24th.
Yeah, I will try to start planning that one out. Okay, thank you.
So the Lafayette thing will be at the beginning, just get off,
Yeah, we'll do that.
because they have little kids that was.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.